We've covered the basic foundations for the idea of simplicity in cute music so far, so in this episode, I want to go over a little bit of the intention side of the equation for cuteness. Up to this point, we've been able to make some objective observations in the music in order to derive some building blocks for cuteness, but talking about intention is a little different. There are a lot of layers as to why someone might be making music. Maybe they want to express something they feel or make a statement about something. Maybe the creator wants to play around with a compositional concept, or it could be none of those reasons and something entirely different. Without being able to mind swap with that person, you'll probably never be able to know. But I think most would agree that this is a big part of what makes music so beautiful. Music can be interpreted in different ways by everyone, and your personal interpretation and enjoyment of a piece of music is 100% entirely yours and yours only. And if you're lucky enough to have friends whose personal interpretations overlap with yours in some ways, you might feel understood on a level that isn't really obtainable through other mediums of shared enjoyment. That's how I feel about it anyway. At first, you may think that there's no way intention can play that big of a factor in the audience's perception of the music, but any piece of music that's written to picture would disagree with you. For example, the opening to Monsters Incorporated is pretty cheerful, and the intention that comes across musically is a big factor in that. Set the same sequence to creepier music, and it feels a lot different. Aside from specific cultural disconnects like the different subtleties from the interpretation of a foreign country's music, we can see from film scoring that the intention of music can be extremely strong. It could be said that trying to apply this logic to music by itself is convoluted. After all, the reason you can even make this argument is because the two forms of media are joined together. But when it comes to something that hits you in the feels, perception based on personal experience often doesn't differentiate between whether or not the media stimulates all your senses in the same ways that the media acting as the perceptual reference did. We wouldn't get as much enjoyment from listening to the soundtracks of our favorite movies or television series if it was differentiated. I will admit, singly using the word intention to label the observation I'm describing in this context is a bit of a misnomer. I have a feeling that if you ask less overtly cute artists like Wave Racer, Limbo, or Tennyson if they intended for their music to come across that way, they might say no, not at all. What we're talking about here is more like the perceived intention derived from our collective societal interpretation of the music's qualities. So, contrary to simplicity, intention tends to be a more subjective reference for observing cuteness, since interpretation is a big part of it. In 2016, released on Tennyson's YouTube channel, was a video that explores the described imagination of a person who is blind since birth while listening to music. Although the video is ultimately not a true representation of Nikita's imagination since it's first filtered through the editor's interpretation of her descriptions, I think it does a good job at highlighting just how different or similar each of our own individual interpretations can be at times. This comment thread on that video puts it best. Knowing this, how can we change our frame of mind to make intention a useful reference for perception of a musical quality? In 1942, Disney published a movie with a segment that explored some of the culture in South America. One of the things often talked about and glorified in a lot of documentaries that go over Latin music is the music's festiveness, and this Disney special is no exception. Western culture throughout the later half of the 20th century has had plenty of opportunities to be exposed to upbeat and energetic Brazilian styles of music such as choro. I bring this up because festive Brazilian influence can often be observed as a major contributor in modern cute styles of production. Listen to these examples that make use of Brazilian influenced rhythms as an essential element. It just sounds like more of a good time. And if you've studied Brazilian music at all, you know that there were some pretty good times for the musical artists. This type of influential analysis combined with the other identifiers of cuteness we've covered so far gives us a more solid way to argue whether or not a piece of music is cute. Using this kind of cultural chemical X as a compositional approach is probably the most big brain way a producer can add cuteness to their productions. There's just so much history and depth to consider when taking this approach, even when looking at a single culture. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting the cute little thumbs up button and maybe subscribing if you want to know more about the making of Cyoot.